Welcome to the Base Path Podcast, brought to you by New England Baseball Journal. I'm your host, Dan Guttenplan. Today's guest is the head coach at Holy Cross. This is his fifth season as the head coach, or it might be your sixth. Ed, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Fired up to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking at your bio online, and then I think it says your fifth season going into 2024. So will this be your fifth or your sixth season now going into 2025?
Yeah, it's kind of my fifth and a half. I was an interim head coach in, I believe it was January, and then that was the COVID year, so was interim for about a month before the world shut down. So, yeah, technically my sixth, but really my fifth full season.
Yeah, I want to actually go back to that because the previous coach, Greg DiCenzo, was he accepted a position, I think as the single A affiliate manager for the Cleveland Indians. And like you said, that timing is a little different. A lot of times you see these D1 coaching changes take place in the summer. What was the process like for you? And, you know, how big of a responsibility change was that for you when you said, okay, now all of a sudden I'm running a D1 program?
It was wild. Coach DiCenzo did a great job here, and, forever indebted to him for bringing me and letting me be a part of this thing. When he moved on, very excited to have my opportunity to be a head coach at the Division I level for the first time. Really excited to hit the ground running, and I felt we did that. And then short weeks later, everything got shut down, and it was certainly not, what any of us could have envisioned happening. But trying to navigate my first season and beyond as a Division I head coach under those circumstances provided obviously some unique challenges, but hopefully in the long run, it made us all better with everything, communication, the way that we interact with our players, the relationship development, learning how to operate when we can't be face to face. So always looking for the silver lining in adversity. And I think that, that hopefully was able to find that silver lining through that adversity can kind of set the tone for the rest of my career here at Holy Cross.
Yeah. I mean, it's so crazy how much that situation impacted the game, in college baseball in particular. It seems like the transfer portal kind of really took off as a result of that. There were so many redshirt years where rosters expanded, and now we've got to kind of crunch them back down to, 34, 35 guys. What has been the biggest challenge in adapting to all the changes that have taken place in college baseball?
Yeah, well, I'd say for us, it's a little bit different because one of the biggest challenges for us is just not knowing what the roster is going to look like year to year. We don't lose a ton of players year to year, but it's very hard to get transfers in here at Holy Cross. It's not an easy process due to the academic standards. So it's not as simple as you lose someone, you go pick someone else up. So I'd say the greatest challenge for us here has just been, what's that number we're looking to bring in on an annual basis from the high school ranks to make sure that we're bringing in enough guys to protect the program from a depth standpoint, but also not bringing in so many that, we certainly don't want to be over recruiting. So trying to find that sweet spot for us has been a challenge, but I think in conjunction working with our recruiting coordinator, Sam Tinkham, I think we have found, a pretty good method and formula as to what that looks like for us. But just not knowing year to year, what the roster is going to look like, and then trying to adapt has probably been the greatest challenge for us from a transfer standpoint.
Yeah, it's almost like a similar challenge to the ones that Ivy League coaches have, where, you can't just, get guys through the transfer portal because it's difficult to get into Holy Cross. It's a really good academic school. There's different standards. What are you finding? Like, what is the recruiting recruiting model? How would you describe it? Like, where are you finding guys? When do you start contact with them? Like, if somebody wants to get recruited by Holy Cross, how would that work?
Yeah, great question. So, I'll start with, if you're interested in a place like Holy Cross, reach out to myself and our assistant coaches. Try to attend one of our upcoming clinics. We have junior days coming up this winter. We have clinics coming up in December and January. So both clinics we ran last year, we committed guys out of. So that's one way for 2026s to get on our radar, now, and even some 27s early. But we're right now, we're dialed in with the 2026 class. 2025 is a wrap for us. So right now from a timing standpoint, we're looking at 2026. I like to think we're kind of that sweet spot in terms of a timeline between a high-end Division I Power 4 type school and the Division III model, right? So for us, in order to get a full picture of an academic standpoint, we'll start committing 26s right around now. But we don't have any commits in the 26 class. Most of it will get done in the second semester. I'd say most of our, 90% of our commitments come between March 1st and October 1st of a student athlete's junior going into his senior year. So we're kind of in that, I think, real nice sweet spot that works really well for us. And then for us, we recruit the entire nation. We always want to do a great job first and foremost in the Northeast, and that includes New England, of course, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. That's always going to be our hotbed. We want to make sure we're bringing in the top tier talent from the Northeast first and foremost and doing a great job in our backyard. And then from there, we just expand out. We've been doing a really great job on the West Coast in California. We got some guys from the South, the Midwest, all over the country. So we've identified our geographic hotbeds, if you will, and we're just going to create really deep roots in those hotbeds. And then, of course, guys will express interest, or we'll find guys from random pockets of the country. And, because of our academic profile, geographically, nothing's off the line for us.
And that's interesting. So when you're recruiting guys, maybe from California, or you said those deep pockets throughout the United States, do you get a chance to see them in person, or are you relying on video, or how does that process work?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. Primarily seeing them in person. The video often is a kind of the first thing we get. That's a kind of the first line that intrigues us in a student athlete, and then we'll try to get out and see them. Obviously, for us to get out to the West Coast is not an easy task, but we do make, 1 or 2 trips, maybe up to 3 trips out there over the course of a 12-month window between California and Arizona to try to see guys. And, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And it's rare that we would commit someone without seeing them play in person. And there might be really good players, but, when we're only bringing in whatever it may be, 10, 12 guys a year, we can't roll the dice on someone that we don't have the opportunity to see play with our own eyes. So there's a lot of really great players out there, a lot of high-end academic students, and so we do the best we can. But our coaching staff is out all over the country all summer long. So it's a lot, and it's great. We're certainly going to miss some guys, but we find some pretty talented players as well.
Do you get out to those WWBA events in Jupiter and in East Cobb in Georgia? Like, are those hot spots for you to recruit guys?
Yeah, those are big for us. Going down to all those WWBAs, especially down in Georgia. We have not done the one in Jupiter. It's in the guts of our fall season. While we do get out and recruit in the fall, a big part of my philosophy is make sure we're committed fully to the guys who are here on campus. We've recruited them here for a reason, and player development is a hallmark of our program. And, I just think that these guys have entrusted us with their development. So when they're here, we're going to be very present as best we can to be here with them. And we're not going to, miss 3, 4, 5 days of practice or have missing coaches here and there. So we want to make sure that we're giving our student athletes that are here as much attention as humanly possible. So we do get out on the road. And our recruiting coordinator, I think he missed 2 practices or 3 practices this whole fall, but it's really imperative and important to me that our coaches are here working with our guys in the fall. But all those events, you name it, you've probably been to an event. You name it, we've been there. So when we also target the high-end academic showcases, like the show ball academic showcases and things like that. So that's good. Those events are great because it's their target audience, right? That everyone there is already looking at high-end academic schools in a certain part of the country. So it's really a combination of our own clinics, the academic clinics, and then, of course, all the tournaments and events all over the country.
Yeah, I'm interested in the timeline of the recruiting calendar now, because the NCAA imposed the rule where you can't initiate contact or at least see guys in person until, August 1st before their junior year. And it seems like even now there are guys in the class of 2025, like big-time recruits, and you couldn't have predicted it because the NCAA shrunk the roster sizes, but there are guys who were committed to Vanderbilt that are all of a sudden on the market again because Vanderbilt's crunching down those roster numbers in the years to come. And even, big-time schools that are outside the Northeast seem to be telling guys like, hey, I know you made a commitment here, but we're not going to have room for you. I wonder if there's a market for, a college coach to say, hey, we're just going to wait and, maybe do the class of 2025 recruiting like in the fall of their senior year for guys who all of a sudden, but I don't know if you could do that every year because the roster size crunch is kind of what's affecting that now. Is there anything to be gained by waiting and really kind of delaying the recruiting process and seeing what's left over at the end? Or do you kind of want to take control of it and pick the guys you want?
Great question. So I think it's a combination of both. I think there is value in waiting. But then, you're again in a place like Holy Cross, we have to be wrapped up, pretty soon here because of the application deadlines and things like that. So it'd be a little bit of a roll of the dice where if you don't find somebody late, it's not like we can just go find someone in April as a senior and get them into school. So that's not the way it works. So, but there is value in waiting. I do believe that. I think that, as long as I think it's less about the timeline and more about finding what you value in a player and a person. And if those values align both on the field and off, it doesn't matter if it's fall of their junior year or it's fall of their senior year. If you find the right fit and right person, that's when it's time to move. So there's a lot of very talented players out there, though, probably more so than ever before. And there's really talented players reaching out now that we have to unfortunately say no to because, we've committed to our class and it'd be a disservice to bring in someone and tell from our end and tell someone else, hey, you no longer have a spot or, to over recruit, to an egregious extent. So there's a lot of really talented players that are on the board, and we unfortunately have to say no to due to the timing. But certainly something to keep in mind moving forward. And like everything in college athletics, and especially the recruiting landscape, it's all about just improvising, adapting, and ultimately overcoming it. And making sure that we're just doing the best that we can. Is it, it used to be kind of year to year and not month to month, and now it's seemingly week to week and day to day. So all we can do is just adjust to the best of our ability on a daily basis.
Yeah. You mentioned that this is your first D1 head coaching experience. You do have experience as a head coach at Bard College. You actually brought the program back and were kind of the first head coach since the program, I guess, went defunct in like 1932, I thought I saw. Coach DeCenzo had a lot of success at Holy Cross. So when you took over the program, I imagine like anytime any coach takes over a program, they want to put their own stamp on it. They kind of want to model it after their coaching philosophy. What were some of the things that you really wanted to kind of instill in your players, and what were the goals kind of when you took over the program?
Yeah, I think it's, regardless of where I've been or anything like that, I've always valued highly, first and foremost, guys that I enjoy being around, bringing in recruits who I enjoy being around. We spend so much time with these guys, these student athletes to, be around guys that are enjoyable to be around. And it's awesome, that to continue bringing in guys, guys that were here were great. Guys we're bringing in are great. So we wanted to certainly continue that. Again, we spend so much time with these guys. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If you're not an enjoyable person to be around, it's not gonna be a good fit. So certainly looking for someone who values academics and athletics extremely highly. And then on the field for me, we're always looking for guys who control the controllables, which is, given high level of effort, energy, and hustle all the time. We play very much that college brand of baseball. I call it, not the, big league style. That's probably not fair to a lot of big leaguers, but our guys are going to be playing hard all the time. And I like to think that, we're trying to instill a culture that if you were to watch Holy Cross baseball play without a scoreboard, you'd have no idea if it was the first inning, the ninth inning, the 12th inning, if it was a tie game, up 10, down 10. We're just playing the same way all the time. And because we have individuals who are extremely focused on the process. And we are, of course, results matter a lot. But our guys understand that the results are a byproduct of a great process. So we just focus on winning pitch by pitch and winning innings. So I like to think if you watch us play, our guys are pretty stoic in their approach, regardless of the situation. So, I think that was the case when I was at Bard, when I was a player, assistant coach at the University of Rochester, and hopefully now is the head coach here at Holy Cross. So those intangibles really are, the biggest part of it. And then guys who love Holy Cross for Holy Cross. Finding the right fit is as important as it's ever been, needless to say, with the transfer portal. I think that if you get coaches truth serum before the transfer portal, of course, they always would say, we want to find the right fit. But if you get in truth serum, I think the right fit meant the best player they could get into school. I think finding the right fit now truly means that. And when I tell guys, hey, in the recruiting process, if you're interested in Holy Cross, be interested in it because it's Holy Cross, not because it's the best baseball school you have an offer from. Until we have LSU across our chest, there's always going to be a better baseball school out there. Don't come because it's the highest, academic school that you can get into, right? Until we have name a school across your chest, there's always going to be a better academic school based on the rankings, which of course can be arbitrary, but take Holy Cross for everything that it is. And I think that message hits home with recruits. And I tell guys, if you don't feel it in your bones and you don't feel it 100% that you want to be a part of this thing, don't commit here. If you're 99% in, don't commit here. I think that's really helped us to find the right fit. So that's one area that has probably changed, admittedly, a little bit since I took over, is we are extremely diligent about finding the right fit and people who love Holy Cross for Holy Cross and all that comes with it.
Yeah, I would imagine if you're not dipping into the transfer portal as much as, probably most other D1 programs, and even in the Northeast now, it seems like everybody's hitting it pretty hard. The developmental model must be so important to you to make sure guys, because it's a little unusual now for guys to go to colleges and stay there for 4 years and try to develop there and earn their starting spot and, stay there even if they're not starting their freshman year. Now I almost feel like you have to recruit guys that are either transfers or guys that are going to start right away their freshman year. Otherwise, they're going to leave. What is it, or how do you guys place emphasis on that developmental model? What are you doing to say, hey, this is a little unique. We want the guys to improve here and really become the players that they can be?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that we focus on and emphasize, and a lot of other programs and coaches obviously do it as well, do a great job of it. I just make sure that guys know when they get here through the recruiting process, hey, we are not we're going to coach you up. And it's the adjustments we make, they're stitches, not surgery. We're not breaking guys down to build them back up. We're making minor adjustments here and there, but we are constantly coaching and giving individual feedback. And we just make sure guys know that because, development is going to be a game changer in terms of getting where we want to go with each individual and in the program. And we are not the type of coaching staff that's going to just roll the balls out and say, hey, you were recruited here for a reason, go do your thing. We're going to coach guys up and we're going to coach them hard, especially in the fall and preseason, so that hopefully if we do a great job and our players are coachable and receptive to that, then come the springtime and game day, that's when we can say, all right, fellas, you guys have trained extremely hard. Go play. A big thing that I talk about with our guys is don't expect to rise to the occasion. Expect to fall to the level of your training. So with that in mind, that's kind of the backdrop from day one. We're going to train extremely hard. We're going to train with a focused intent in everything that we do. Want to make sure that the guys know that in the recruiting process, and they know that from our first team meeting, and they know it every single day. So I think our assistant coaches especially do a fantastic job of giving a lot of constructive instruction and positive feedback to guys throughout their entire time here. And player development is such a key thing because we don't bring in five tool players. If you have 5 tools, that you're probably not going to be playing the Patriot League. You're probably going to be playing Power 4 getting drafted. So we bring in those guys that have 2 or 3 tools, and we work our tails off to master those strengths. Okay. And then we develop the areas of improvement. We put them in situations to have success. And I think that that's a recipe for success individually and collectively. So there's just a huge point of emphasis on it. And we make sure you bring guys who want to be coached. And if you don't want to be coached, this is not the right place for you.
Yeah, the fall really does seem to be that developmental period, because once you get into the spring season, it's 4 games a week and sometimes even more if you have the midweek games. What is it, when you, I guess, there's everybody seems to want to go to D1 when they're in high school or at a prep school. It's got to be D1, it's got to be D1, and obviously there's a little bit more money in D1, but the schedule is a lot different too. The fall schedule is completely different for D1 programs than it would be for D3. Can you give us a sense, all these guys who want to go D1 coming out of high school, college, what does the fall look like? I saw you guys just had your World Series on social media. What is the length of the season? How intense is it? And what is it? When does it wrap up?
Sure. Great. So that was one of the adjustments I had to make as someone who was a life 12 years in Division III as a player and coach, and then transitioning to the Division I level. Year one, it was a lot. It was like, holy smokes, like I need more material. As I'm acclimated to developing a program and players over 16 days in the fall, which I believe now has been extended to 25 for Division III. But going from that to basically, this year we're 5 to 6 days a week from August 26th until December 3rd. So we opened up with our first team practice on the first day of classes. So basically what it looks like here is, one thing I think that's pretty cool and unique about Holy Cross is, for as academic as we are, we don't have the academic restrictions that, say, the Ivy League does. So we don't have, the Patriot League doesn't put restrictions on us. The school doesn't put restrictions on us. So we're allowed to practice as much as, the LSUs and Vanderbilts of the world are, which I think is fantastic. So what that looks like for us is, for our first 3 or 4 weeks, we're in an 8-hour window that's mandated by the NCAA. Our 8-hour window is Monday through Friday, 4 hours of strength and conditioning, 4 hours of individual skill instruction. And that runs for us from, the 26th of August until September 16th or so. And then September 17th kicked off our 45-day window, which we're allowed to go 20 hours per week with one off day. So during that segment, from September 17th to November 1st, we would go typically Monday through Saturday, 17 hours of baseball from a team segment, and then 3 hours of strength and conditioning. And of course, these hours are hours that you can work with a coach. Our guys are doing stuff on their own with their teammates on top of that voluntarily. But that's the coach hours. And now we just transitioned back to that 8-hour week, which will take us right up to December, early December. And then when we come back, you're right, Dan. I mean, we got about 3 weeks and then it's opening day. So this is our preseason. And that's one of the biggest differences. D1, D3 is Division III. You have typically, when I was in Division III, you had about 5.5 weeks before opening day in the spring. So you had time to implement everything. We're here, the implementation of our team concepts and plays really happens in the fall. And then the spring is brushing up on that stuff and a lot of continued individual skill development to make sure we're as prepared as possible to face, a pretty tough schedule on an annual basis. So, and then once we're in season, it's a lot, as you alluded to. I think we played maybe 40 road games last year or something along those lines. We put, 14 or 15 home games. So we're on the road a lot. We travel a lot. We do that without missing much class, which is extremely important. But it's really cool that our guys were able to handle that while also being fantastic student athletes. And, I'll say this, Division I, Division III, man, there's a lot of Division III teams that will beat a lot of Division I teams out there. There's no doubt about it. And it's about finding the right fit. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. The idea of Division I is far more luxurious than, what it is once you get here and it's time for your, to kind of put the pedal to the metal when you shoot at the floor. So the idea of it's great once you're here and you realize, oh man, like, coach, we're flying here and flying there. It's cool, but catch a red eye home. You land at Logan at 6 a.m. You're expected to be at class at 8 a.m. It takes a special individual to be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find it difficult, with the season, a lot of these guys are playing, Futures League or NECBL or on the Cape in the summer, and that's kind of an extension of the spring season. You hear of a lot of pitchers hit that pitch count and they're kind of shutting it down late in the summer or, throughout the fall. Do you find it difficult to simulate like competitive game situations with pitchers in the fall just because a lot of them, that's not typically a time, October, November, where guys are still throwing?
No, not for us. Not at all. For us, a lot of our guys are throwing. A big part of our development is pitchers. Yes, they pitch in the summer. It's case by case. It's case by case. Some guys need to get more innings. Younger guys that, maybe got 5 to 20 innings with us, maybe go cut it loose in the summertime a little bit, get some innings there. Other guys, who pitch a lot, we may scale back in the summer. Some guys need to train and work on velocity development or pitch design, whatever that might look like. So it's case by case, but our guys are expected, for the most part, not everyone. We had a couple of our top guys just start throwing again a couple weeks ago. But it's important that our guys are prepared to throw in the fall because, number one, they need to develop under the tutelage of our pitching coach. That's really important that they're doing that. because that's our way to implement our biggest philosophies and concepts and things like that. And then number two, their ability to throw in the fall is extremely beneficial for our hitters to face top end arms during the fall season and not be limited in their live reps. So our fall is pretty comprehensive and pretty intensive, and we inter-squad at least twice a week. And then our fall World Series was a 5-game series over 8 days, and lack of pitching was never an issue. So very happy with how that went. But a big part of our thing is most of our guys are throwing in the fall. Very few get shut down during the fall season.
Netting Professionals is proud to be the official netting partner of the Cape Cod League and the New England Collegiate Baseball League. Netting Professionals is in the sports business of improving athletic programs one facility at a time. Netting Professionals designs, fabricates, and installs custom netting, wall padding, windscreen, batting practice equipment, and much more for high schools, colleges, commercial facilities, and stadiums throughout the United States, while providing high-quality products and great service to numerous baseball programs throughout the New England area. To learn more and to speak to a Netting Professionals representative today, visit them at nettingpros.com. Remember, when it comes to netting, it's Netting Professionals.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students can earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
All right, Coach. Well, are you up for hanging in there for our 3 up, 3 down segment?
Let's do it.
Nice. I'll introduce you now to our producer, David Yaz.
3 up, 3 down.
Yes, time again for 3 up, 3 down, where we have 3 questions for both of our panelists who are completely unprepared, and they look nervous. I'm just saying. Dan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Coach looks ready. All right.
Yes.
All right. Here we go. Today on 3 up, 3 down, I'm going to give you 3 quotes from famous baseball figures, and the game is just to tell us whether you agree, disagree, or comment otherwise, and just have some fun with it. So, of course, any baseball quote exercise begins with the great Yogi Berra. Yogi once said, "You can't think and hit at the same time." Maybe he couldn't. Who knows if others could. You can't hit and think at the same time. Coach, you're the guest. You get to go first. What do you think of what Yogi said there?
I'll agree with it for most guys. For most guys. But there's also it's case by case. Everyone's a little different. Some of these guys are really analytical and really like to get in the weeds with things. And them thinking sometimes helps. But I will, for the most part, agree with that for sure.
Okay. Dan, your thought?
So at exactly the same time, I don't think you can think and hit, but I think, you want to, be situational about it. You also want to be strategic about it, so like you even think of Manny Ramirez as kind of a brainless, wonder, but he was always setting up pitchers. Like, once in a while he'd take a fastball and then you'd see him step out and just be like, oh man, that was some heat right there. I can't hit that. And he was like roping him into throwing another one.
You remember the day he just like dropped his bat and it was a called third strike? I have no idea what his thinking was there.
Yeah.
But when I was going to bring him up, he and Johnny Damon, of course, both stars of the '04 Red Sox title team, called themselves the idiots. And I think there was something to that. I don't think those guys are, conducting symposiums on mathematics. I think he just hit. But
no, I don't think
ahead.
they lived and died with every pitch, but I think every pitch you do need to think like, hey, what am I expecting here? Am I sitting fastball? Am I expecting a breaking ball? And then once you step in, see it, hit it.
I guess all players are different. I recall Mickey Mantle, a quote once from him. He sat down with Ted Williams and they just talked hitting, and Ted was getting into all the angles of the ball and the spin and just really analyzing how to hit a ball. And Mickey said, I listened to him. I tried it. The next day I went 0 for 4. And after that, I decided I'm just going to go up there and swing as hard as I can at everything. Takes all kinds, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Question number 2. The quote comes to us from Leo DeRocha. The great Leo DeRocha said this: baseball is like church. Many attend, few understand. Baseball is like church. Many attend, but few understand. Dan, we're going to let you go first on this one.
I don't know about that. I think most fans that are at the game understand what's happening. There are levels to it for sure. Does this person understand, every single ruling and, reason for pitches and scoring and all that? No, but I think most people that are there are following the game and understand, here's what we need to, move ahead. Here's what we need to do to get these guys out. I think most people understand baseball.
Okay. Coach, your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, I love that quote. I first saw that quote, man, I was probably 8 or 9 years old. My dad got me a small book called Baseball, Wit, and Wisdom when we were in Jamestown. And I remember seeing that quote on one of the pages, and it's always stuck with me.
Very cool.
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say I agree. I'm going to say I agree with that. The deeper and deeper I get into this, and go to games and listen to, what you might call casuals talk, man, they have no idea, the intricacy that goes into it for the most part. Now, obviously, the circles, right, that we roll in and we hang out with, they know what's up. But I think if you were to go to Fenway Park on a Saturday afternoon and you pulled, hey, what did you think about that 1-2 slider? You might get a lot of oh, yeah, okay. So I think in terms of, the concepts, basic concepts, you need to score, but, the more intricacies of it all, even at our needs, even my parents at times who are amazing and know what's going on, have questions that are seemingly rather elementary to me. But again, Dan, guys like us, we're pretty dialed in with what's going on. So I think few do understand, what it takes to get the job done.
Coach, it seems like you're saying there's a lot going on that the average fan might not appreciate. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of one thing I witnessed that I'll never forget. It was 2013 Red Sox. They went on to win the World Series that year. It was a glorious year. It was a game, I believe, in September, and I remember Max Scherzer was the opposing pitcher. It was a key moment in the game, and we were sending up who was our backup catcher that he also played for the Braves. He's Ross, David Ross.
Yeah, he's a manager for the Cubs.
Right. Okay. So David Ross, we sent David Ross up at a key moment. Johnny Gomes is on third base, and I was thinking, there's no way David Ross is going to get a hit off of Max Scherzer. He's gonna whiff. They should have pinch hit, and he worked the count, I think, full. And Johnny Gomes, I'm sitting right near third base. I had great seats that day. I could see everything Johnny was doing, just doing his usual dance off of third base. And then on the 3-2 pitch, Gomes broke for the plate. And I could see Max Scherzer's eyes avert and look right towards Gomes. The ploy worked. He waited until it was 3-2 when he broke for the plate. Now, Johnny Gomes is not going to steal home, but it was enough to throw Scherzer off. And Ross singled up the middle. I'll never forget that. And I think, Coach, you tell me if you think that's a good example of something that, Yeah.
I mean, listen, Coach, we get second guessed all the time, and it's just part of it. It's just part of it. And there've been situations in every coach's career where you make a move because you know what's going on, you know what the guy's capable of in practice, and there's a situation last year where we had a third inning pinch hit, with the bases loaded with freshman John LaFleur and need a grand slam. And, it was like, what are we doing here? Like, we're really going to pinch hit here in the third inning? But it was a great matchup, in terms of swing path versus the pitcher on the mound. And who knows when the bases are going to be loaded again. And fortunately, it worked out. It just as easily could have not worked out. And people say, Coach, what are you doing? It's crazy. But, there's a lot of things that are going on and a lot of items at play in terms of matchups and something as simple as that. But that's a great example.
Yeah. I think it's also a lot easier to follow the higher levels that you get. Like if you're at a game at Fenway and, Chris Sale's on the mound, it's like, oh, wow, he's 97 mile an hour fastball. Every pitch is on the scoreboard. He's 47 pitches into the gate. You're tracking it all as it's going just by sitting there and looking what's on the scoreboard. You go to a high school or prep game, you're like, I don't know how hard this guy's throwing. It looks pretty good, but that was a breaking ball. I don't know if it was a curveball or slider or what he's throwing here. So I think it's easier, at the major league level to kind of sit there as a spectator and follow it than it would be if you show up to a game where the scoreboard's not even working.
Great point. Hey, Coach, you brought up something that maybe it's obvious to the baseball fan, but it's a unique thing about baseball that once you take a player out, you can't put him back in. And so. In basketball, you can rest a guy, save him for the fourth quarter, whatever. Same with the other sports. In baseball, yeah, if you pinch hit in the third inning, Coach, you better know what you're doing. And you did. The proof is in the pudding. But you might not have if it didn't work, like you said. All right, final quote, just to round up the gang of old baseball legends. This quote comes from Casey Stengel. Good pitching will always beat good hitting and vice versa. Good pitching will always beat good hitting and vice versa. Casey Stengel said that. Obviously, it's nonsensical, but it's always an interesting debate. Which wins, better hitting or better pitching? Coach, your thoughts?
I agree with the quote. Okay, as nonsensical as it may seem,
yep.
I very much agree with the quote because in its aura, he's saying, on any given day. And that's the beautiful thing about baseball. That's the beautiful thing about baseball. You could have the guy of all guys on the mound, and you could let up a 5-spot in the first inning and, because the offense has a great approach and they have a great day. And on the flip side, they can go the other way. So I haven't heard that quote, believe it or not, but I love it. And I agree with it. I agree with it. And, I think the one thing that gets lost in it is people don't talk enough about a big defensive guy. Not enough people talk about defense. That's a game changer. It's not just about the pitching and hitting. It's the defense and base running as well. So, but I love that quote because any given day, and that's one of the people.
Well, sure. Yeah. Dan, your thought?
I think it's probably shifted more towards the hitter since that quote because back then, starting pitchers used to go 9 innings and, now in the World Series, some of these games are bullpen games or, guys are going 4 or 5 innings and the hitters are going to stay in the lineup for all 9 innings. So I think if you have a great lineup, it's going to be more consistent throughout the game. Whereas if you have great pitching, that's going to change because you're going to probably use, 3 or 4 relievers in a big game anyway. So I'd say it's shifted towards the hitter actually since that quote.
And in the college game especially, Dan, especially the college game, you just look at team ERAs and things like that when the average Division I ERA is right around a 7. I mean, that would have been even heard of 15 years ago. So the college game has certainly shifted to the more offensive side.
No, that always jumps out at me. Like every February, you're looking at the first weekend stats and you're like 14-11, 15-12. All these games look like football scores.
What you said, Coach, reminded me of one observation about baseball that I always found interesting. Is it's the only sport where the defense has the ball, Yeah. And I forget who said it, but it was a quote about hitting, and it was just hitting is all about rhythm and pitching is all about disrupting that rhythm. And so, but you're right, Coach. It is kind of any given, like even a 20-game winner in the playoffs might falter and give up 3-4 runs in the first inning, and you're like, how does this happen? And it's just because it's a weird game. And you never know. Great answers, both. I'll have Casey Stengel bobbleheads sent out to both of you if I can find them. I'm not sure they exist, to be honest. Back to you, Dan, to wrap things up.
Nice. Well, thanks to Coach Ed Kahovec for joining us on the Base Path podcast. Rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on your
preferred platform. Thanks to our producer, David Yaz. The Base Path podcast is a Siemens Media production.